Many metalheads know Blaze Bayley as an ex-singer of Iron Maiden, but in reality he's much more than that, and some of his solo work definitely proves it.
This is my life.
So today let's take a look at the history of the album, which was supposed to be an Iron Maiden record, but in the end has opened an absolutely new chapter in heavy metal. Here you go.
Ghost in the machine. Enter to your dream.
By the way guys, as always, please do not hesitate to comment on anything you hear or see in this video, and especially if you disagree with me, because the whole point of our Metal Pilgrim channel is of course to start a conversation. But alright, let's do it. In January of 1999, Blaze Bayley was officially out of Iron Maiden, and while there's no exact footage of that band meeting where the decision was made, most Iron Maiden fans of course do understand the processes that the band was going through at that time. And in addition to that, let's be honest here, Blaze's ride at Iron Maiden wasn't exactly a smooth one.
Can you see him? Can you say, kill him?
And just a reminder, several months before that decision was made, during the Virtual 11 US tour, Blaze ran into some pretty serious vocal issues, which led to several cancelled shows. Officially, it was all due to an allergic reaction to dust and pollen in Nevada and Arizona, but later on, Yannick Gers and gazillion other people actually did come out and say that Blaze was simply forced to sing outside of his range. A decision which, to this very day, I actually think was not exactly the right one back in the 1990s. But no matter how rough the exit was, Blaze was far from being done. Quite the opposite. Just a year after that, he came back to the world of metal with something that many fans actually believe to be one of the best debut solo albums in this genre ever made. And the best thing about it is that on it, he got to be exactly who he was. Even while Blaze was still at Iron Maiden, he was actually already forming ideas for what could have become his third record with the band. And so when that door was shut, he actually already had a head start on what would eventually become Silicon Messiah. And for that mission, Blaze didn't exactly recruit household names. At least not yet. Guitarist Steve Ray was still fairly new to the metal scene at that time. His ex-partner John Slater had previously released an album in 1996 with a band called Stormwatch, a hard rock outfit from Chesterfield, which just happens to be one of the first stops also for Nick Barker, known to pretty much every fan of extreme metal by his time in Cradle of Filth, Dimmu Borgir, and Testament.
On to Judgment Day. Only man's too blind to see.
Bassist Rob Naylor left his trace in the later stage of new wave of British heavy metal movement in Manchester-based band Sam Thunder, which the only thing anyone outside of the United Kingdom may know this band for is of course their 1984 debut titled Maneuvers, and the EP Don't Take Forever, which the band released shortly before disbanded.
Always waiting for the night time.
But a rather interesting fact is that later on Naylor would actually part ways with Blaze to pursue a career of a commercial airlines pilot. Just like somebody else I know of.
Okay, we're cleared to go. Here we go.
The drum job went to Jeff Singer, who was already grinding in the Manchester groove thrash band Kill to This, and who'd later on pop up in Paradise Lost. Which is actually a rather interesting coincidence, because I know it's weird, but at least to me, Silicon Messiah actually for some weird reason always reminded me of Paradise Lost in some capacity. But nevertheless, at that time Singer had just recorded Deviate from Kill to This, which also happens to be produced by the guy who'd tie everything together, and the guy that I'm more than sure every viewer of this channel is quite aware of, Andy Steep. And this is where we come to one of the first reasons why Silicon Messiah actually sounded like a perfect debut for Blaze. It was produced by the future Grammy winner and modern metal architect Andy freaking Sneap, and it was that guy who gave Silicon Messiah that cold tech-driven sound that simply fit that album's vibe perfectly. But guys, real quick, just want to point out that only around 30% of the people who watch my videos are actually subscribed to this channel. So if you're not one of those, and especially if this is not the first video you're watching here, I would really appreciate it if you would consider subscribing right now. Let's continue building this amazing heavy metal community together. But as mentioned earlier, Silicon Messiah wasn't just Blaze venting after Iron Maiden. This whole thing actually carried part of the Iron Maiden DNA, and a DNA of what could have become Iron Maiden's third studio album with Blaze Bayley. As at the very least, one song was actually written by Blaze specifically for Steve Harris and the boys. And that song is, of course, Born as a Stranger. Based on a classic sci-fi novel Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert A. Heinlein, this song was repurposed for Blaze's solo album, and of course has way more connections to Iron Maiden than simply being written for it, as I think pretty much every Iron Maiden fan knows that Iron Maiden themselves have a song Stranger in a Strange Land on their 1986 Somewhere in Time album. Although, interestingly enough, that one actually has nothing to do with Heinlein's novel whatsoever. So, in a way, with Born as a Stranger, Blaze almost kinda wanted to close the circle with the guys. But most importantly, it was Born as a Stranger that gave Blaze Bayley an initial push to carry the sci-fi theme throughout Silicon Messiah, as yes, it was by far not the only sci-fi related song on it. As for example, the track Identity dives straight into Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick, that same book that eventually would become Blade Runner and inspire Somewhere in Time back in 1986. And then there's also Reach for the Horizon and The Launch, which are based on the classic dystopian sci-fi movie Gattaca. But even the songs which were not explicitly based on sci-fi books or movies still carry that anxious tech paranoia, as it is actually all over Silicon Messiah. Fear of machines, of lost identity, of spiraling information overload, and everything else that did seem quite scary back in 2000. And which for all of us today is simply a Tuesday.
I'm sorry. I don't remember any of it.
So yeah, in a way, Silicon Messiah is actually quite a prophetic album. So yeah, if you think about it, Silicon Messiah had everything to be a major hit in the world of metal, and yet its fate was almost as dark as the mood of this album itself. As by some weird twist of fate, Silicon Messiah was released on May 22nd in the year 2000, just 1 week before Iron Maiden unleashed Brave New World with Bruce Dickinson back on vocals. And just like that, Blaze's new chapter gets steamrolled by the return of the prodigal son. Blaze later on even called Silicon Messiah a stillborn album, an album that never had any chance for success. As media attention was gone, fans were distracted and completely overshadowed by the joyous occasion of Bruce Dickinson's and Adrian Smith's return to Iron Maiden. Many fans actually thought that Blaze Bayley had left the world of music back then, and only found out about the existence of Silicon Messiah months after its release. And instantly enough, even the critics couldn't decide what they thought about this record. Metal Hammer absolutely praised it, calling it one of the best albums of the year 2000, while Kerrang gave it 2 stars. Yes, 2! And yet, nevertheless, Blaze Bayley never backed down. He toured it relentlessly, built a die-hard underground following, and never let the fire go out. And the most beautiful thing is that today, 26 years later, that same very album that was absolutely ignored in 2000 is actually considered to be one of the most beloved solo efforts by all of the Iron Maiden fans. So yeah, the start of Blaze Bayley's solo career unfortunately wasn't as bright as Blaze himself, and I'm sure many fans who actually loved his tenure at Iron Maiden, like myself, hoped at that time. And yet nevertheless, this man, whom I personally consider one of the hardest working people in heavy metal overall, still kept going, continued building his loyal fan base, and by his hard work and dedication to his loyal fans, has eventually become the legend in the world of heavy metal. And none of this would have been possible if not for the, yes, imperfect, yet still an incredibly honest debut. An album which, although did not have an immediate success, still allowed Blaze Bayley to put down a mask and be 100% himself in front of his fans, who were now able to admire his work far beyond his time at one of the greatest heavy metal bands on the planet. But anyways, what do you guys personally think about Silicon Messiah? Please let us know in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching this short video, guys, and will prevail. Slava Ukraini!